The origin of the question. Who am I? From the moment you were born, you have carried a question deep within you, one that lingers in the background of your thoughts, shaping the way you live. Who am I? It is a question that follows you throughout life, driving you to seek answers in your name, your career, your relationships, and even in the things you own. Yet no matter how hard you search, you never seem to find a lasting answer. Every time you think you have figured out who you are, life throws something unexpected at you, shaking the very foundation of your identity. Perhaps you have known someone, or maybe you yourself, who once believed they were strong and unshakable, only to be humbled by failure, realizing their own fragility. Or maybe you know a person who built their entire sense of self around their family, only to feel lost when that role was taken away. As the years pass, you might find yourself gazing into a mirror, noticing that the face staring back at you is no longer the one you remember. And then, a quiet fear begins to rise within you. Who was I back then? And who am I now? This search for identity is a universal struggle. But what if the very thing you are searching for does not truly exist? After attaining enlightenment, the Buddha uncovered a profound truth. The self that we so desperately cling to is nothing more than an illusion. It is not fixed, not permanent, and most importantly, our attachment to this false sense of self is the very root of our suffering. This realization forms the foundation of one of Buddhism's most essential teachings, non-self, Rinananada. One of the three fundamental marks of existence alongside impermanence, anicca, and suffering, dukkha. By understanding this, you can begin to let go of the struggle to define yourself and instead embrace the ever-changing, boundless nature of who you truly are. The nature of non-self. There is no fixed self. From the moment you were born, you have been conditioned to see yourself as an independent being, a unique individual with your own thoughts, emotions, and will. You believe in a fixed self, a central identity that defines who you are and controls your actions, decisions, and reactions. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, is this self truly real? Buddhism teaches that this concept of a stable, unchanging self is nothing more than an illusion, a construct of the mind rather than an actual entity. According to the Buddha's teachings, your existence is not a singular, permanent essence, but rather a composition of constantly changing elements, known as the five aggregates, Pancha. These five components create the illusion of a self, form, rupa. This is your physical body, the flesh, bones, and organs that make up your physical existence. But is this body truly yours? It is constantly changing. Cells die and regenerate, wrinkles form, and every breath comes and goes. If the body itself is impermanent, can it truly define who you are? Feeling, Vedana, your sensations and emotions, including pleasure, pain, and neutrality. These feelings arise and fade continuously. One moment, you may be happy. The next, you may feel sorrow. If emotions are fleeting, how can they form a lasting identity? Perception, Sanya, your ability to recognize and interpret the world. Today, you may see someone as a friend, but tomorrow they may become a stranger. Your perceptions shift with time and experience. If your view of reality is always changing, can it be a fixed part of your identity? Mental formations, Sankhara, your thoughts, intentions, and habitual reactions. Your beliefs today may contradict those of tomorrow. Your mind is in constant motion, forming and reforming ideas. If even your thinking patterns are not stable, how can they define you? Consciousness, Vijnana, your awareness and ability to experience the world. But consciousness itself fluctuates from moment to moment. At times you are fully aware. At other times you are lost in thought or unconscious. If your awareness itself is impermanent, can it be the essence of yourself? None of these elements are fixed. Your body ages, your emotions shift unpredictably, your perceptions evolve, your thoughts fluctuate, and even your awareness is in a constant state of flux. If every component of your existence is impermanent, where is the self that you hold on to so tightly? Buddhism reveals that this self is merely an illusion, fabricated by the mind, a river that never remains the same at any given moment. But because we fail to recognize this truth, we cling to the idea of a stable self. And from this clinging, suffering arises. When you believe in a fixed self, you begin to fear change. You worry about aging, about losing your status, about your beliefs being challenged. You seek validation from external things, your achievements, relationships, possessions, to reinforce your identity. But all these things are impermanent, just like you. And so, the more you cling, the more you suffer. But if you begin to understand the truth of non-self, you will naturally start to let go of attachment to personal identity and external things. And when that happens, anger fades. When someone insults you, you no longer see it as an attack on you, but merely as words passing through the air. Fear dissolves. When you realize that nothing truly belongs to you, you no longer live in fear of loss. Suffering diminishes. When you accept that everything is impermanent, you stop clinging to what is bound to change. A person who fully realizes non-self lives with lightness and freedom. They no longer strive to maintain an image for others to admire. They no longer seek control or grasp onto anything as their own. Instead, they move through life with an open heart, accepting whatever comes and goes with a mind of serenity. The truth of non-self is not just a philosophical idea. It is a reality that has the power to liberate you from suffering. But to truly grasp it, you must cultivate mindfulness, observing the ever-changing nature of everything, both within and around you. And from that awareness, you will naturally let go of the illusion of a permanent self. Only then can you attain true freedom, a freedom not found in control, but in releasing all that was never truly yours to begin with. The self is merely an attachment of the mind. From an early age, you have been conditioned to define yourself. You label your identity based on your profession, your status, your achievements, and even your likes and dislikes. You believe that your thoughts, emotions, and the opinions of others determine who you are. When you are praised, you feel validated, believing you are on the right path. But when criticized, you feel wounded, as if your self has been attacked. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what exactly is being attacked? If you pause and observe carefully, you will see that praise and criticism are nothing more than passing sounds. They hold no inherent meaning, only the meaning that your mind chooses to give them. A compliment affects you only if you accept it as part of your identity. A criticism only causes pain if your mind clings to it, perceiving it as a threat to your ego. In reality, suffering does not arise from external circumstances, but from your mind's attachment to them. This attachment to the self is the root of suffering. When you believe, I am my achievements, you fear failure. You become obsessed with maintaining your reputation, your success, your image, because any harm to these things feels like harm to yourself. When you think, I am this body, you suffer as you watch yourself age, your health decline, your appearance change. You feel powerless because you have identified with something that is always deteriorating. When you believe, I am my personality, you feel lost when your beliefs, opinions, or preferences shift over time. You wonder, if I no longer think as I once did, then who am I? But the truth is, there is no fixed self to protect, only a continuous stream of thoughts, emotions, and mental states that arise and fade away. The more you try to hold on to a stable identity, the more anxious you become, feeling as if you are at the mercy of external changes. You become a prisoner of the very illusions you have created. The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from the world outside, but from the mind's clinging to what is inherently impermanent. When you let go of this attachment, you will find true freedom, a state unshaken by praise or criticism, untouched by the fear of change, and no longer threatened by things beyond your control. This is the path to liberation, not by becoming indifferent, not by rejecting life, but by realizing that the self you have been trying so hard to protect was never real to begin with. Once you see this, you no longer need to struggle. You no longer need to grasp. You are free. Non-self and liberation from suffering. If what we call the self is merely an illusion, why do we cling to it so fiercely? And if we are able to let go of this self, what will we gain? These are fundamental questions, Not just philosophical inquiries, but ones that directly impact how we live, think, and perceive the world. From a young age, we are taught that we are distinct individuals, possessing a unique identity, a set of thoughts, and a personality that defines us. We build our sense of self through experiences, achievements, and the validation of others. Yet in reality, it is precisely this belief in a fixed self that is the root of all suffering. Attachment to the self is the root of suffering. Take a moment to reflect on the suffering you have experienced in life, whether it was the pain of losing a relationship, the disappointment of unmet expectations, or the hurt caused by someone's harsh words. All of it can be traced back to attachment to the self. We believe that there is a self that needs to be protected, recognized, and validated. And when that self is challenged, we react intensely. Consider the emotions that frequently dominate your life. Fear arises when you worry about losing something, be it status, reputation, wealth, or an important relationship. When you identify yourself with these things, you feel insecure whenever there is a sign of loss. You cannot fully enjoy the present because your mind is constantly filled with anxieties about the future. Anger arises when you feel that your sense of self has been attacked. When someone treats you differently than you expect. When they say things that hurt you, you respond with frustration. But if you look deeply, you will see that this anger exists only because you believe in a self that has been offended. If you do not cling to the ego, these words become nothing more than passing sounds. They cannot touch you. Suffering arises when you lose something you once considered yours. Your youth, your beauty, your career, your loved ones. You suffer not because these things leave you, but because you once believed they were an inseparable part of you. When reality proves otherwise, you feel empty and lost. But the truth is, nothing truly belongs to you. Everything you have, your body, emotions, thoughts, relationships, are merely temporary phenomena. They come and go according to natural laws, yet you assign them a sense of permanence and desperately try to hold on to them. And that is why you suffer. Attachment to the self keeps you in a constant state of anxiety. You always feel the need to prove yourself, to control everything, to hold on to what you cherish. But the more you try to control, the more exhausted you become. The more you cling, the more you fear losing. You cannot truly be happy if you are always afraid of losing your happiness. Letting go of the self is the door to inner peace. So what happens if you let go of attachment to the self? Would you become indifferent, uncaring, or passive? Not at all. In fact, when you are no longer bound by the ego, you will experience a sense of freedom and peace deeper than anything you have ever known. You will no longer feel anger. When someone insults you, you will no longer see it as a personal attack. You will understand that words are just sounds, that others' emotions are merely reflections of their own state of mind, not yours. You will see things as they are, without letting them disturb your peace. You will no longer feel fear. When you realize that nothing truly belongs to you, you will no longer fear loss. You will appreciate what you have without becoming attached to it. You will love without possessing, enjoy without clinging, and live without fearing tomorrow. You will no longer suffer from change. Instead of resisting the reality of impermanence, you will accept that everything has a beginning and an end. You will understand that youth, health, relationships, all are like flowing water. And instead of suffering from this truth, you will cherish the present moment more deeply. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the more the sand slips through your fingers. But if you open your hand, the sand remains in your palm, and you can feel its texture without losing it. This is exactly how a person who understands non-self lives. They still love, still experience life, but without attachment. When you let go of the self, life becomes lighter. You no longer strive to build an image for others to admire. You no longer seek control or desperately hold on to anything. You embrace life as it is, without force, without expectations, without resistance. And in that letting go, you will find a profound sense of peace, a peace that is not dependent on the external world, that is not shaken by praise or criticism, and that is not disturbed by the changes of life. At that moment, you are no longer a person bound by the illusion of self, but rather a part of the vast flow of existence. You live in freedom, floating like a cloud in the sky, present, beautiful, yet unattached to anything. And in that moment, you will finally understand what true happiness is. How to practice non-self. Understanding the concept of non-self, anatta, is one thing, but how do you actually apply it to your life? How do you live with the awareness that the self is an illusion? This is not just a philosophical idea to contemplate, it is a practice, a way of seeing and experiencing life differently. Here are 3 essential ways you can cultivate non-self in your daily life. Observing impermanence. Take a moment to reflect on yourself. Ask honestly, is there anything within me that never changes? Look at your body. Has it remained the same since childhood? Your thoughts, are they identical to what they were 5 years ago? Your emotions, do they stay constant or do they shift like the weather? Everything about you is in a constant state of flux. Your body ages with time, your emotions rise and fall, and your thoughts continuously evolve. The very cells in your body are replaced every few years. The things you once held dear, certain beliefs, ambitions, desires, may no longer feel relevant to you today. By recognizing this ever-changing nature of existence, you start to loosen your grip on the idea of a fixed identity. You begin to see that clinging to a rigid sense of self is like trying to hold on to water. It inevitably slips through your fingers, and the more you observe impermanence, the more you can embrace flexibility and openness. You no longer have to fear change. You no longer have to fight against the natural flow of life. You begin to move with life rather than against it. Practicing mindful meditation. One of the most powerful ways to directly experience non-self is through mindfulness meditation. When you sit in stillness and observe your thoughts, something incredible happens. You begin to see them for what they are, just passing phenomena. Thoughts come and go, just like clouds drifting across the sky. Some are bright and pleasant, others are dark and heavy, but none of them define who you are. If you pay close attention, you will notice that. You do not choose most of your thoughts. They simply arise on their own. Some thoughts contradict each other, proving that no single thought represents your identity. The more you try to suppress thoughts, the stronger they become. So who are you if you are not your thoughts? Through mindfulness, you begin to understand that thoughts are just mental events, temporary and fleeting. The moment you stop identifying with them, they lose their power over you. You no longer feel trapped by your own mind. This realization creates a profound inner spaciousness, a sense of freedom that allows you to watch your emotions, desires, and fears come and go without being controlled by them. You start to experience life from a place of presence, rather than getting caught up in the endless stories your mind creates. Letting go of attachments. One of the greatest causes of suffering is attachment, the need to control outcomes, the need to be seen in a certain way, the need for life to unfold exactly as you expect. But when you begin to practice non-self, you realize that control is an illusion. Life is like an ocean, with waves that rise and fall beyond your control. So instead of resisting, what if you could let go? When someone praises you, enjoy the moment, but don't cling to it. Praise is just sound, passing through the air. When someone criticizes you, let it pass without resistance. Criticism is also just sound, fleeting, and impermanent. When you experience success, appreciate it, but don't tie your identity to it. Success, like everything else, will come and go. When you face failure, see it as a lesson rather than a reflection of your worth. It too will pass. When you stop holding on so tightly, life flows more naturally. You no longer see yourself as a fragile entity that needs constant defense. Instead, you see yourself as part of the greater whole, like a wave in the vast ocean of existence. You rise, you fall, but you are never separate from the ocean itself. And in that realization, there is peace. The path to freedom. Practicing non-self does not mean losing yourself. It means finding true freedom. It means no longer being controlled by fear, no longer being burdened by the need to prove yourself, no longer being enslaved by the mind's endless stories. It means living with lightness, with clarity, with presence. So the next time you find yourself caught in anger, fear, or attachment, take a deep breath and remember, everything changes.